Ladies, it's such a wonderful pleasure and honor to be with you. I came last conference, and you were, many of you, known to me, many of you strangers. Now I feel, I look into your eyes, I see sisters, friends, dear ones, with whom we share so much in common. Thank you for inviting me to be with you. Today, I'd like to speak about 4 things. What is the International Women's Convocation now? And that means, what have we done since I spoke with you about making women's work new? 2, why are meetings like yours, convocations, so important to us? 3, what programs promoting sustainability have we completed, and what are the results? And last, what have we learned? An international organization must have an international board, and we have to date representatives from US, Northeast India, Philippines, Germany and Europe, Transylvania, Romania. We would like to have you to join us make important decisions. We have a Global Sisters Advisory Council and are honored to have Kathy Matsui as a member of this council. This council expands our international connections, provides expertise to all of our decision-making, and connects us with projects our members have initiated in Romania, Bolivia, Northeast India, Uganda, and soon, we hope, with members of the IALRW. Communication is at the heart of our mission. Thus, we have a quarterly newsletter, we have a social networking site on Facebook and Twitter. We have an online community which has increased to 1,000 participants in a year. And we have Skype and Facebook, which we use regularly. All of these communication vehicles are distributed electronically. Meeting and planning, how does it work? We have both convocations and small gatherings. Convocations connect us and help us identify projects because attendees come from all over. They help us learn from one another. And the International Women's Convocation has had gatherings in Houston, Texas, USA, and in Marshvasherhe, Transylvania, Romania, and Kathy attended both of those, we are honored to say. In 2015, we go to Bolivia to meet with liberal religionists there. And in 2016, the larger convocation will convene in California. This is the theme of my remarks. I want to say it to you now, please. We are a grassroots organization. Without local commitment, no programs will be developed. We believe that without grassroots commitment, no sustainable project can be successful. Our first convocation came in 2009. It brought 600 women from 17 different countries to ensure that we had good communication. At that meeting, we raised $10,000 to launch our project in Africa. We have received small grants from the Unitarian Universalist Association and funds from foundations and private donors. At the heart of how we make decisions is something we call the Global Sisters process. And I have with me, and you may also get off of our website, a handbook called Global Sisters Process for Congregations and Organizations. And this is a process by which we work and help teach others to work, to define goals, select priorities, make an action plan, identify which leadership skills women will need to reach goals that they define, and then learn how to assess a project, asking, did this work? Why not? How shall we fix this for the next time? And in order for there to be a next time, we help women around the world find local foundations and sources of government support to move the project forward. These are ingredients like a good dinner party, which sustains us and sustains our projects. We had a gathering in the Philippines, in Dumaguete, Negros Oriental, and the women came together from primarily Unitarian congregations, 45 of them. This was the first time women from all Philippine congregations had come together. And the goal of the conference was to explore livelihood possibilities for women and then to begin a Global Sisters process to set up priorities and action plans. And then, ladies, as we said in Houston, forgive me if I don't mean to offend you, we said, ladies, women, girls, chicks, babes, when we all got together and sat in a very proper way in the auditorium, do you know what happened? We had a 6.5 earthquake. The walls trembled, and of course we all moved out. Somebody said, well, you shouldn't have done that. This was a new building. It would have been perfectly okay, but we moved out. The next convocation was in Transylvania, Romania, and the big news was no earthquake. We sat in the wonderful cultural palace in Marshvacherhay, and Peter Morales, the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, greeted us. You can see his image on the center of that screen by video. The conference theme selected by the planning committee, by the local planning committee, was keeping your balance in a changing world. If the world is changing, and we all know it is, how do women, as you mentioned, how do we as women keep our balance, maintain our direction, keep our sisterhood firm amidst all these changes? For the first time, we learned something from the IALRW. We had simultaneous translation in Hungarian and in English. And the funds raised for this convocation paid for 75% of the costs for Eastern European women. Part of the convocation was Global Sisters Action Planning. Each event, conference, telephone call, convocation is an opportunity to ask, what do women really want? To facilitate our conversation, 30 young women were selected and trained to help us engage in this Global Sisters planning process. They were a terrific group. At the second convocation, we also had theme speakers, Bishop Ferenc Bálint Bensenzi, leader of the Hungarian Unitarian Church, and Margot Adler, a well-known U.S. public radio commentator and author. The Great Awakening in Hungary, as the chairwoman of the convocation called it, resulted in Hungarian women founding for the first time their own national organization. Can you imagine, after years of communism, what awakening must have meant to these women? As U.S. theologian and ethicist James Luther Adams has said, groups embody the power of organizations and the organization of power. Women get things done. Well, like what? And the answer to that is women get things done in a sequence that they deem to be necessary if they are to reach goals which are important. One goal was preserve cultural values, things that their mothers and grandmothers cherished, but which many of them missed because they had to go to work to support their families. So, out of this convocation, programs and projects emerged. The first one was microfinance in Uganda, Africa. A second was the Global Sisters program in Romania, Hungary, and India, and then a leadership school in Transylvania. I want to say a little bit about microfinance in Uganda. If you work internationally, you must have partners you can trust. And we began with a partnership with the Africa Rural Schools Foundation. The director of that foundation, Rini Wan, said she wanted to have women, help women move to the next step, which is you've got some education, how do you create sustainability for your family? And she launched a microfinance program with her group. Microfinance isn't new. Mohammed Yunus in Bangladesh began by loaning small amounts of money to village women. But here in Uganda, it began with teaching business skills to women, then helping the women to open bank accounts, and third, to form lending circles with 5 to 6 women as members in each one. We are now on our 4th series of lending circles. Every agreement that we have in a country is accompanied by a letter of agreement or a memorandum of understanding. And that's when it was signed, Koleshvar in 2013. The agreement must benefit both parties, puts the in-country organization in charge of dispersal of funds, and helps all of us carry the Global Sisters priorities forward. The 3 areas that the women in Transylvania picked were empowerment and leadership, time management and balance, and saving traditional skills and values. Time management and balance had to do with keeping your own life in balance, connecting with spiritual wholeness, providing security for themselves and their families. It also had to do with preserving skills and crafts associated with women's work in their parents' generation, but skills which they had never themselves learned. So here's one example of a workshop in glass painting. And you notice that the women in this and other pictures are young women. They wanted to learn macrame as their mothers had done it. And in India, they had leadership development as well, but their priorities were different, and it reminds me very much of the theme of the wonderful dramatic presentation we saw last night. Their priorities were education and awareness, health care and reproductive rights, prevention of violence against women and children, and economic empowerment. In 2013, they identified preventing child marriage, construction of garbage pits to establish sanitation standards, and creating bathing facilities for women. I look back on a wonderful book by Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo, and called Poor Economics. The authors point out that in the developing world, women take on the burdens of life's essentials, getting water, keeping villages clean, providing sanitation. All this takes time. Do the men help? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But they did help here. They helped construct a bathing facility for women, and they were pleased and happy to help. And here they have completed the structure, and it's time to celebrate. The other health issue was eye care. So they set up a process so that they could test eyes in each of the villages and conduct screenings to identify who need glasses. In Padu, they had a very critical need to prevent violence, and they said, do three things. When violence occurs, take action against the perpetrator immediately, and they showed how to do that. 2, offer counseling so the scars of violence can be healed. And 3, just as in the drama, take legal action to protect the rights of women. In Transylvania, we had a leadership school, and it faced many problems. Najgizi, the leader, said, the resistance was so high at the beginning that one of the Unitarian ministers called me and said, what did I want to get out of all of this leadership training for women? Was I trying to start a Transylvanian feminist movement? Terrible idea. Do we want to fill women's hearts with a philosophy of dreaming? Women, just like men in our society, have a well-defined role. And they asked Gizi, do you want to break it up? She said she was shocked. But after a long period of conversation, she said, this is what I wanted. I want nothing else but a change in people's attitudes. So these were the curriculum areas for the leadership schools. This was the first time women in Transylvania, Romania, had had an opportunity to have leadership training. And the final session, which will be held in November, will focus on business planning and business development. At the school, as you can see from these photographs, there was some interaction and role-playing, and here are the graduates. I think knowing both Gizi and the women that I've met in Transylvania, life will be different. You don't know what you've learned if you don't test. And testing means asking questions. It means keeping note of the answers. It means making changes. I think one of the things we've learned is when you are clear, you see the tasks that need to be focused on. But you always need to balance, because some women want to do everything and some women maybe not so much. So flexibility and note-taking are very important. Convocations is something you already know about. Women are very good networkers. They know how to smile and how to make friends with one another. And they can talk about justice, human rights, balance, and the issues that touch women's lives at a deep place. When women get to know one another, they are vulnerable, but a spark lights up and something new happens. We are all from different cultures. They are different. We need this time to get to know one another and to build relationships for a breakthrough to understand and to communicate. Then we can practice what we do. As I said at the beginning, community ownership and sustained engagement are very important. We have help, resources, a website. Sustaining change doesn't happen by itself. It requires a long-term vision. Nothing is instant. But we can be wiser and stronger together. So I do hope that some of you will become part of this larger International Women's Convocation Network, and perhaps agree to come to Bolivia or to California. We can change the world for women, we learned, but only by one small project at a time. And our schedule of conferences, we have webinars, one coming up on September 13th. We have a leadership development in Transylvania on October 11th, microfinance lending circles on January 17th, and so forth. And this is our website, and this is our executive director who works part-time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Barbara.